But I do want to get to this part of the service right here, which is the message, and I'll keep it brief because the major message has already been shared by each person. Or the fact that we're connected, we have a shared experience, not only with each other, but that everybody has their own story to tell. Everyone has their own experience of that day. And not just in this room, but throughout our country and throughout our planet. But this leads us to today. Today is a milestone. It's a milestone because today is 10 years later. We think back to what we just shared of all the thoughts that were running through our minds 10 years ago. All the what ifs. All the, were we in the process of being invaded? Were we this? Were we that? Were we this? Were we that? Collectively as a country that day, we turned a corner. We lost something. Up until that point, we thought of our country, good or bad, right or wrong, agree with it or don't agree with it. We had such a confidence in our country. We knew that we were safe, we knew that we were protected, we knew that we were isolated from the whole world, and we knew that everything was always going to be okay. When you look back at the energy of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, we had just come into a new millennium with a bunch of gusto of all the stuff that we were going to do and be and become as a country. When I look at the energy of our country since that day, it was like finding the day you find out that your parent is human. Up until that point, you just know that your parent could put on a suit with an S on the chest, a red cape, and sure enough fly around the room. That there is nothing that your parent can't do. And at some point, you have that moment that you realize they're human. And on one level, it's empowering because now you can see kind of eye to eye instead of this pedestal thing. But at the same token, there's a part of you that gets a little scared because all of a sudden this, no matter what, they can always take care of it, they can always fix it for me, goes away. And that's what happened, I think, to all of us on that day. Collectively in our country, as we realized that we weren't impervious, that our parents could be hurt. I look at the 10 years in between that day and this day, this confidence that got shattered. We've seen it go into wars. We've seen it go into the collapse of markets that never were even fathomable that could collapse. Every person in this room previous to 9/11, no matter what house you bought, whenever you sold it, whenever your choice was to sell it, you made more than you bought it for. After that day, our confidence was shaken. Our value as a country was shaken. And there are so many things that cascaded with that. Our confidence in our economy, in our markets, in our housing, and all these crises and crashes and all these things. But this leads us to today. And today is when we can, on some level, put some kind of closure stamp on that day of 10 years ago. I believe that most of us, if not all of us, 10 years ago today, 10 years and a couple hours ago, when we thought of our best case and our worst case scenarios for our country, for our lives, for our families, on some level, subconsciously thought, I wonder where I'm going to be 10 years from now. I wonder what our life is going to be 10 years from now, as an individual, as a family, as a country. We will always remember 9/11, 2001. Mark said it's imprinted on all of us, flash by flash, in our minds. And it's important to remember not only the folks who lost their lives that day, but also the folks whose lives forever changed on that day. And to an extent, that little part of all of us. But today is 10 years later, 10 years. It's time to turn the page. It's time to turn the page that now we can start putting it in the rearview mirror. But that was then, and this is now. Now, after 10 years of not one additional successful attack against America, we can start to get a little bit of that confidence back. We can remember the things we learned on that day from the unity, the connectedness that we felt to each and every other American, to each and every other human being. We can remember that, no, this is done. We're going to do this now. We can remember the, are you okay? We can remember the, I can help you, can you help me? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Let's all come together. All of a sudden, none of it matters. My house, your house, this, that, title, position, job, nothing. It was the guy on the corner with the sign saying the world is going to end was equally as valuable as the CEO that was running out of a corporation. All of a sudden, that to-do box wasn't nearly as important. In fact, it was not important at all. What emails you hadn't answered that day didn't matter. None of the things that we put as important in our lives mattered that day. The things that suddenly did matter, that shot to the top of our priority list, was each other. The people we knew and the people we did not know. As I watched from my television and I saw people jumping out of windows of a skyscraper, I would think not only about that person, but that person's family, their kids, their parents, their brothers, their sisters. As I thought about the folks in New York, and at that point I had never been to New York. But I was waiting for it to happen in LA. And so it wasn't just something that I saw on TV, it was something that, you know, like Darcy, that felt like it was going on across the street, even though it was, but it wasn't. It was all connected.